All right. Well, good morning, everybody. This is week 2 of our 3-week mini series on team collaboration, communication, and care, talking all about different team engagement platforms that we can use. This morning, ShaLise and I are going to walk you through several team communication channels or platforms that you can use to just set up really strong communication and project management with the teams that you're working with, whether that's county-based, state-based, whether that's across areas, whatever works for you. We're going to be covering Microsoft Teams, Slack, and we'll also talk a little bit about Zoom chat for those of you who might be less familiar with that platform. So ShaLise is going to kick it off for us talking about Microsoft Teams.
All righty. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday.
Morning.
So I'm going to talk about Microsoft Teams, as Danae said. I noticed that many of you may be on Microsoft Teams or may have used Microsoft Teams or at least heard of the term. For me personally, I'm new to it, so I'm just going to show you like the basic level of how to utilize Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to share my screen. Alrighty. So usually when you can download Microsoft Teams from OSU self-service, and then once you download the app on your desktop, then you can just use your OSU name.number and then the password to log in, just like how you do any other like Outlook or any other OSU platform. And then you'll be introduced to Microsoft Teams. So this is what the general dashboard looks like. So you have on the left side, you have your activities tab, which kind of shows you all the notifications you'll see. Your DM or direct messaging tab, the Teams tab, which is probably what you'll mostly use, assignments, calendar, which is kind of integrated with Microsoft Outlook. So that's another way you can utilize that. And then a files tab. So I'm first going to show you how to join and create a team. So so far we have an LOD team and an annual conference team. I'm just going to show you, go through the first kind of steps of what to do. So you'll hit the join or create team in the top right-hand corner. And then you'll be prompted to do create a team, join a team with the code, and then there's other teams that you can join as well. So you'll hit create a team, and then you select a team type. So you can do class, professional learning community, staff, or other. For me personally, I would probably do a staff team. And so if we would create a team, if it were me, I would probably create like an annual conference team like how I did before. So you'll just name it. You can do, you can do a description, and then you get to select either if you want a private team or a public team. So I'm going to stick to private since we just have planning committee members on the team. And then you'll hit next. Then you'll be prompted to add members. You have the ability to skip this option if you would like, and then add members later. So for right now, I'm going to skip. And then this is what you'll be introduced to. This is now your team. And then to get back to the dashboard, you'll hit all teams, and then this is where you go. And you're able to move these teams if you would like. So you'll just click and drag, and then, yep. You're also able to hide teams, but I cannot see that tab. But I think you can, so you'll hit the 3 dots and then you can hit hide, and then that's where your hidden teams can be if you need to, if you want that option. You can also show, and then it'll go right back to the dashboard. So for the annual conference team, you have a general kind of channel, which this is like a general channel. Everybody can kind of create conversations and communicate, and then you also can add other channels. So for me, I added a general session channel, keynote speaker, marketing, request for proposals, etc. To add channels, you'll hit the 3 dots next to the team name. You'll hit add channel, and then you'll name it. So I can do evaluation channel. You can hit a description if you want, but then click add. And now you have an evaluation channel. So then within each channel, you have the post tab Files tab, Notes tab, and then you're able to add other tabs as well. So this is how you get to see like the Microsoft integration. So you can add an Excel tab, a Forms tab, Planner, you can do Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint. So when you upload documents, this is kind of where the other side of Microsoft Teams comes in with the collaboration aspect. So let's say if I wanted to have the planning committee kind of edit a document or add any notes, I'm able to do that with the under the Files tab, and then adding either a Word document or PowerPoint, however I want to do that. And I'll show you that a little bit later. I'm going to go back to the general conversation and kind of show you how to start a conversation or create kind of like create a conversation. So if you want to do a general format, so let's say I want to do, you could do a general topic, please sign up for subcommittees. And then you could do a little short message. Hi all, please choose a subcommittee by 6/19. Sorry, my keyboard, you have to type really hard. And you can add a GIF if you want, or you can add the file. So if I wanted to add the Excel file, you could do upload from my computer, or if it's in Box, you have that integration as well. You just have to, I can show you how to download that. But for right now, I'll show the contact list, or if you want to do the subcommittee list, you'll hit open and hit the little airplane at the bottom. And now we have a new conversation, and now this is kind of like geared towards just subcommittees. So if I wanted to look, if I wanted to see or organize, like let's say there's a bunch of conversations happening and there's a bunch of files being shared and commented. Let's say if I wanted to go to that file, just a subcommittee file, you'll go to File, and then it should be under here. I don't know why I didn't see it. Let me refresh. Oh, okay. Well, it's not doing it today, so I apologize. But usually, oh, there it is. So if you go to Microsoft Teams, I'm sorry, if you go to Microsoft Teams, then you can open that contact list, just in case there's a bunch of files within that conversation. So I'm going to go back to the Teams, and let's say that you wanted to mention someone, or thanks, Jared. So let's say you wanted to mention someone. So if I want to add Debbie or Danae to the team, so you'll hit the three dots, you'll hit add team member, and then since this is integrated with Microsoft Outlook, everybody's, all OSU employees' emails are integrated in this platform. So if I want to type Wolfe to search Danae, she will pop up along with all the other individuals with Wolfe as their last name, and then add, and then let's say I want to add Debbie. There's Debbie, and T, I can add you as well. And also one of the cool tricks or tidbits is that you can determine or decipher whether the person you add is an owner or a member. So I can make Teresa the owner if I would like, so she can then go in and edit things or change things around. You have that ability though. So once you close it, it'll give them a notification to join. And let's say I need Debbie and Danae to fill out the subcommittee list. So I'll say, hey, and then you'll hit the @ sign and their names will pop up. Hey, Debbie and Danae, please fill out the sign-up sheet. Thank you. So now Debbie and Danae should get a notification, and those notifications will then be under the activity tab on your left-hand corner. So that's pretty straightforward. For chats and direct messages, it's pretty much the same thing. If I wanted to create a new chat with T, I could, like how I mentioned before, you could just type in the last name and their name all the McCoys should pop up, and then you'll hit the person that you need to select. So I'll say, hey T, thanks for joining. Woo. Team. And now she'll get that notification. And then you're able to see whether or not she has seen the notification. And also, I'm gonna go to a chat that Jared and I are in. You're able to add emojis. So he just said, hey there, I got the EAC committee on here. I could add an emoji like, whoa. That's just something fun to add. If I go back, let me see, you're able to save a message as well. So let's say that this whole conversation is filled up with about 50 or 60 different conversations, and I don't want to forget about the subcommittee list. So to save this, you will go to 3 dots next to the conversation, and you'll hit save this message. And then to find all of your saved messages, you will go to your account, and you'll go under saved. And now you have your saved message right here. And I'm going to go back to Teams. You can also add, I think I told you about adding other tabs in here. Danae, I'm going to show how we can collaborate through files then. So with the contact list, I'm going to click that, and it should open within the platform. So you're now able to edit, just like how you would in Box. Everyone is then able to edit in Box. It's the same kind of version within Microsoft Teams. And so if I said, hey, Danae, I want you to join this file. Let me see if I can do another one, because I had everyone's names and email addresses. If I said I want to do connect with or edit with the annual conference 2019 extension annual conference document, and I say, hey Danae, can you edit with me? Then Danae has the ability to go into her files, select 2019 extension annual conference, and edit with me. So then Danae, can you show kind of that?
Yes, do I have access to that file?
You should, because I added it to the annual conference team. So if you go to your files, it should show up, and go to Microsoft Teams. It should show up as, oh, you should, let me see. Let me add it for you just in case.
Okay. I'm seeing a bunch of 2020 documents, but not that particular one.
Let me add it in. I'll just add this one in just for time's sake. So now you can, I'll click it, and then you can see others within the document. This is a PDF. Let me check it one more time. My apologies. She can't edit a PDF.
You can't edit the PDF online because it's an Adobe product and not a Microsoft product, right, ShaLise?
Yes, exactly. Okay, now, Danae, go to a 2019 annual conference schedule, and then I should be able to see your name pop up and see that you're within the document. This is just another way of collaborating with other team members. And so if you have a document or have a file, So now you can see her typing. And you kind of want to collaborate. It's kind of like Google Docs. Instead of using Google, since that's not approved, you can use Microsoft Teams as an alternative to kind of edit and make changes to different documents or add to it. So thank you, Danae. One other feature I'm going to show today would be the planner feature, which I think is going to be very helpful for me personally with annual conference. And so to do that, you're going to hit the plus sign. You're going to hit the planner app. And then you're going to create a new plan. If you have an existing plan, those are plans that exist in other teams that you can utilize. However, my plan is going to be new. Or actually, I think I have one already. Yes. So I have one already, Annual Conference 2020 plan. And so within this plan, or within the app, you can add tasks. So I added a create an agenda task, and then within that task, you are able to state whether it is not started or in progress or completed. You can change the priority. So if it's important or urgent, you can do a start date, start time. I usually just stick with due dates, and then you're able to add a description or notes, and then also a checklist. So far, I've sent out the Qualtrics survey to committee members. I've gathered the results. I've created 2 solid agendas, and then I just need to email the draft agenda. So then I made a note. So when I sent the survey out, when I gathered the results, and then created the agenda as well. And then you hit the X. You can also group them by buckets. So each title is a bucket. This is how you add a new bucket. So now I have an evaluation bucket. But you can group them. So if you want to group it by progress. So if you want to see all the tasks that are not started, all the tasks that are in progress, and then all the tasks that are completed, you're able to do that. If you want to add a task, this is what it looks like initially. So you'll add a task, create meeting agenda for our next meeting. And you can set your due date. I'll do it by Monday, 22nd. And then you're able to also assign this to yourself or to other people. So if it was Jared that needed to create the meeting agenda, then I would hit Jared and then add the task. So then now he's sent the notification to create a meeting agenda. And now it even sends reminders to his email if he hasn't made any progress or hasn't touched the actual task within this platform. And I believe that is all I was going to show you today. I see that there's a few chats.
I think it's mostly the LOD team saying, we really like Teams.
Okay.
There's no questions in there, ShaLise. It's just us chatting.
Yeah.
Michelle calling us slackers.
I'm afraid because you're making me like Teams.
I know. That's what I was telling Danae. I was like, forget all of the other apps we were thinking about. And I'm like, this is probably the best way to kind of collaborate, I think. So even on projects with other people outside of the LOD team can even join and collaborate on documents and presentations. So
it becomes
and it's approved.
Really nice. And it's approved and it's free. And it's unlimited. So thank you so much, ShaLise, for the overview of Teams. And if anybody has questions, feel free to just put those into the chat here, or just unmute yourself and ask. We're going to show you a tool that we've been using for the last 3 or 4 months, really kind of since COVID started, called Slack. I've used Slack for the last 5 years or so, off and on. When I started as an ed tech, it was the primary tool that my supervisor and I used to communicate on a daily basis. It functions very similarly to Microsoft Teams, but it has a lot less functionality, which can be good and bad, because if you don't need all the bells and whistles that Teams has to offer, Slack, I think, offers functionality and a better user interface. It just looks prettier. It's a little bit easier to navigate. But again, there's a lot less functionality there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my Slack screen with you all. So I'm just going to kind of show you the general user interface here before we dive into some of the specifics. So Slack is an OCIO approved tool from a security risk assessment perspective. You can access Slack in your, I think on Windows it's called a portal manager, right? Is it portal manager? I can't remember what it's called on our Mac. And then you can also, you should be able to access it through like CFA SIT to get that download. So right now I am in one of our channels. I'll come back to this channel to kind of make sense on like what you're seeing here. So we have what's called a workspace, and this is our LOD workspace. It's basically everything that we do is housed within that workspace. You can be a member of multiple workspaces, and you can navigate around each of those through this sort of top menu up here in the upper left-hand corner. The thing I haven't mentioned that I should mention is this is the desktop application. So I have installed the desktop application on my computer. You can also access Slack just through the web portal. In my opinion, whether you're working with Teams or with Slack or with Zoom chat, which we'll also talk about here in a few minutes, it's best to download the desktop application so that you have easy access to it. You don't have to have everything living in a web browser. It's just easier from a user standpoint. So if I was a part of multiple workspaces, those would live right in here. I could go up here. Let's say I had a workspace for another team that I was on, completely separate from LOD. Within each workspace, then you can create channels and invite people who are a part of that workspace to be in those channels. Right now, our LOD team has, I think, 18 different channels. And these are basically curated feeds of content around a particular project or a particular topic area. So I'm in my program design channel right now, which I created a couple of days ago as we start to have more program design conversations. And all members of the LOD unit were invited to this channel when I created it. That was a decision that I made when I created it. Other channels here, I think most of us are a member of all of these channels. But you can just pick and choose. Like if you're working on a team where you're like, okay, we're in Medina County and we have 10 different channels, but maybe you only have certain team members a part of those channels that are relevant to them. So that's a nice way to just curate content and make it easy to have conversations outside of email, which is really nice. And it kind of functions as basically an instant messenger. There's a lot fewer like team collaboration tools. So this doesn't integrate with things like Office 365. So while I can do file shares here, like if I wanted to send ShaLise a file, I could go into my direct messages, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a second. I can just drag and drop a file right in here and share it directly with ShaLise. So ShaLise shared with me this PDF that she created, and I'll come back to this later because it's a really good overview that she created of what does Slack offer versus Microsoft Teams. So what else did I want to share about that? So you can do file sharing. You can also go back to your archive. So this is really nice too, because sometimes messages get lost in email. When you use a tool like Microsoft Teams or Slack, it archives all of those messages. So I could go back through like the search feature and just search like a keyword, and it's going to bring up all of those previous messages that had that keyword in it. So it's a really good way to like search and find content. On the free version of Slack, it caps out at 10,000 messages. And all of our LOD members have gotten the message either this week or last week that we've hit that 10,000 message cap. So now any messages that are, all of our oldest messages, I should say, are being like auto deleted. So now we don't have access to those messages unless we upgrade the account and pay for one of the pro accounts. But you do have a lot of functionality even just on the free account here. So some other things I wanted to talk about. So if we go back into this program design channel, all of our LOD members are a part of this channel, and I can just go in here and start typing content. So this morning I dropped a file in here, explained what the file was, and asked the team members for some feedback on it. Amy said, I love this bow tie effect. So I decided to drop a GIF in here just for fun. I really like GIFs. I think they're fun and playful. It's a way to just kind of like liven up the conversation a little bit. Sometimes they're just really funny. Slack does integrate with Giphy, which is a tool that you can use to search for GIFs. So if I just type Giphy into my message bar down here, I'm going to hit enter. It's going to pop up a search box here, and I'm going to type for something. I'm going to type any keyword. So right now I'm going to type bow tie, and I'm going to hit search, and it's going to give me one option. So rather than seeing an entire feed of GIFs that you can sometimes get lost in and spend like 10 minutes searching for the perfect GIF, which sometimes can be a time suck, it's going to give me one option. If I don't like that one, I can hit shuffle, and then it's going to pop open a new one. So hey, this one's good. I'm going to go ahead and share that, and now it shares directly in that feed. So all of the LOD members just got a notification that I posted a chat in this channel. When there is an unread message, so can somebody from the LOD team share a message in that channel? So I'm going to go out of it, and if somebody could do it again, I want to show what it looks like when there's an unread message, because it will be highlighted over here on the left-hand side of my screen. So I just got a notification. I have what's it called? Pop-up notifications allowed on my desktop. So anytime someone sends a message, it pops open like a little banner notification on my desktop, but it also highlights it over here on the left-hand side. So I know that there's some unread messages in that channel. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. Jared says, hi. Amy says unread messages. T says, good job. And there's Debbie with a GIF, right? So this is really nice. It's just a way for us to curate content. Here comes Brian typing something. I can see that he's typing something because it shows down here, Brian Butler is typing. So that's kind of a nice little feature too. What else did I want to share here? Oh, you can mention people. So let's say, you know, all 8 of us team members are a part of this channel, but I only have a question for Jared and ShaLise. So I'm going to type the @ symbol, and I'm going to start typing Jared's name. I'm going to tag him, and then I'm also going to type ShaLise. I'm going to tag her, and then I'll say, I have a question for you. So then they'll get a notification. They'll know, like the rest of the team will know, I only have a question for those 2, and I'm looking for a response from those 2. So the rest of the team knows that I don't like necessarily need them to respond to me. Now, let's say I only have a question for ShaLise. I can go down here and send ShaLise a direct message. This way I'm not like gunking up a channel with something that I only need from one person. So I can just go down to ShaLise's name over here under direct messages and say, here's my question for you. And then ShaLise can respond directly to me. So some really, really nice like team integration features here. You have a lot of different options for like creating lists, similar to most other like text editors that you would have. You can type in emojis here. So you have a whole host of different emojis. You can search. You can do the file upload, as I mentioned. So you can do the file search. You can also just drag and drop a file directly in here, say a few words about it, then hit enter, and it's going to go into that feed. I think what else I wanted to show you here. The file upload, I can save something. So as an example, ShaLise sent us yesterday a really great article on the history of Juneteenth, which is today, by the way. And I hope that you're taking some time to learn some new things about this holiday and understand what it means. I know OSU has sent out a lot of really, really great resources for learning here. But let's say I don't have time to read this right here, right now, but I want to come back to it and I want to save it. If you hover over that message, I have a couple different options here. ShaLise showed us how to react to something in Teams. I could do the same thing here with this. In fact, I did react to it. I sent a little heart emoji here, so you can react to it. This is a really nice feature. This is what I like to call It's like the thank you email thread. So have you ever like been in an email thread where you, like somebody asks you a question, you respond, and they send you back an email that just says thank you? There's no real helpful information in that email other than the fact that they thanked you. It shows that they've read that message. This kind of takes the place of that message. So instead of like sending back a thank you, you can just say thumbs up, which basically says, I've seen this, I acknowledge that you sent it to me, so that's nice. I also have the option of saving this. So if I hit that little ribbon, it saves it. And if I go up here to saved items in my upper left-hand corner, now this thread, this message with that link attachment is saved in here so that I can come back to it later. Once I read that information, if I want to save it and do something with it, that's on me to do. If I want to unsave it, I would just hit unsave. So that's a cool option there. Team, am I missing anything? This is the platform that the LOD unit has been using primarily. We've pretty much moved entirely away from email. So unless we need to pull somebody else into the conversation that's not one of the 8 members of LOD, we're using Slack. We're not using email because it pretty much just replaces email for our team communication and collaboration. T has asked us, this is a really good thing to point out too. Where is it? T has asked the team to put in a list of weekly tasks. This is a really great way for T as our supervisor to see what we're working on each week. So each week we come in here and we say, these are my weekly tasks. These are the overarching programs or projects or initiatives that I'm working on. That way we all kind of get an aerial level view of who's doing what. So I know that Amy's doing a lot with Canvas right now. And I know that that's like her primary focus, and I'm not going to bother her with other stuff because she needs to get that stuff completed. So this would be really good if you're working in like a county. It's really good too, like for an area leader. Like as an area leader, you might create 3 separate workspaces, one for each of the counties that you oversee. And then within each of those workspaces, you would have multiple channels for all of the major projects that you're working on within those counties.
Danae, there's also the way of condensing like the threads. Did we ever like show that?
No, we
I know
haven't
the other
actually played
Slack
with
group.
that.
Yeah.
So let's say, okay, so I threw like this message in here earlier. I wanted the team to give me some feedback here. I could start a threaded message. How do I actually do that? Start a thread. So now this is actually a really helpful feature because now it basically creates almost like a forum thread just about this message. So let's say there's multiple simultaneous conversations happening in the same channel and they're kind of overlapping. Sometimes that happens, especially as you have like 8 or 10 or 15 team members in a channel. There's a lot happening. So I could thread this out, kind of pull it out, make it its own little space, and then people can respond just to that message and everything gets threaded beneath it. We've actually not played with this. I don't know if any of you have in channels that you're on, but I've not actually played with this feature in Slack. But we talked about it yesterday, like maybe we should.
Yeah, I did at my my old job. We used to do the threads, and so we would either add more files. So if I was editing a file and I'm like, hey Jared, just look at this instead of emailing to him, and I'm like, here, I updated this file, can you look at it? And he can respond from there, like it looks great, or change this, that, and the third. So
yeah. So it's an additional way to kind of organize that content in a way that makes sense for you. The thing that I want to stress here is you're probably thinking like, why would I use Teams over Slack? Like the functionality is the same. Of course, you have way more functionality in Teams, like especially with the integration, with Word and Excel and PowerPoint. Personally, I think that this platform, I think that Slack has worked well for LOD because we haven't had a tremendous amount of like collaboration on documents. But as we continue to build projects and initiatives, we probably will. So there might come a time, maybe even soon, that we migrate our entire team over to Microsoft Teams because maybe we've just outgrown the capability of Slack. For some of our smaller teams, Slack is really nice because it's pretty much just an instant messaging platform. And for some of you, that might be all you need. You don't need all the bells and whistles that Teams has to offer. So you can think about using a tool like Slack. And then, like I said, if you outgrow it and you move on to something else. So I see a bunch of unread messages that you guys looks like you've been responding to. So thank you for that, team. One thing I will mention, because ShaLise and I tested this last week, I didn't even know that you could do this, but you can actually do phone or video conversations with people. So if I wanted to message, like ShaLise and I are having a really good conversation here, and then we're like, you know what, let's just hop on a call. Yes, I could send ShaLise a Zoom invite because we have Zoom, we're all using it, but I could also just video call her directly in Slack. So that's a capability that's built in. On the free account, you can only do video calls between one other person. So it's only, one person to one person. On the paid account, I think you can have up to 15 people in a video call. So that's a nice function too, because now I don't have to open up Zoom, get an invite, send it to ShaLise. I just use this little button and I call her. And if she has Zoom or Slack open, she can open it and it's right there. So super nice functionality there too.
Hey, Danae, another thing that I like is under the direct messages section, you have your own workspace and you can type things in there if you want to just keep notes to yourself. So I have used that in the past.
Yes, and you'll see I sent myself a shrug emoji, and you're probably like, why did you send yourself such an important message? I was actually playing around with some of these. So if you do a /, there's a bunch of basically shortcuts that you can do here. So I was playing around with this and happened to come across this shrug emoji. So if I do / shrug and type that and then send myself that shrug message. So there's some nice shortcuts. There's also Zoom integration that works with shortcuts too. So if I want to start a Zoom meeting directly in here with somebody, I should just be able to theoretically send them / Zoom, and it automatically opens up Zoom and I can start a meeting directly there. I've not actually played around with that functionality, but yes, like Debbie said, this is a workspace for you. So I could send myself messages, I could give myself a to-do list, and then I could go back and edit this. If I'm like, you know what, this is dumb, I need to delete this. I can just go ahead and delete that. So it's a really nice space for you to do a to-do list, and then you can just sort of delete those as you start to finish stuff up. So that's a really quick overview of Slack. Slack has some great help resources out there. So if you want to learn more about it, you can do that. Oh, the other thing I didn't show is you can star different channels. So let's say I know I'm doing a lot in this program design channel, I could go up here and star it, and it basically moves it under starred. So now that's one of my top channels. So out of the 18 channels that we have here, I only regularly use probably 5 or 6 of those on a day-to-day basis. So I could star those channels so they're just always here at the top of my list. The general one is another good one that we tend to use a lot. This needs assessment, we started, but we don't have any content here. Or maybe I'm just not a member of that. That's why there's probably nothing there. So you can see that there's channels here, but you might not be an actual member of those channels. So that's another feature that you have there too. So any questions?
I was going to say there's one more feature that I like about Slack, and I can show
yes.
on that.
I will stop sharing. I know Stacy asked about Skype for Business. We can talk about Skype for Business.
Okay, so one thing I like to do, when I'm on lunch, and so if I feel as though Danae has sent me 3 messages during my lunchtime, she's like, why is ShaLise not answering my messages? I like to set my status. So when I'm on lunch, you can add an emoji. I usually try to add a food emoji, and then do lunch. So now you can, you notice that next to my name, my status is lunch. So if you're like, ShaLise is not responding, or so-and-so is not responding, what is she doing? You can set your statuses. So even if you wanted to change in a meeting, you can, and it has that in a meeting, or commuting. So you can that's one skill or tidbit about Slack that I like. Yeah.
And that's awesome. Thank you for that, ShaLise. And you, I think, probably do a better job of anybody, any of the LOD members, and actually setting yourself away. So it's really helpful because I'm like, all right, ShaLise is on lunch, I'm not going to bother her. Or maybe I'll bother her anyway, but I know that she's not getting notifications, so she'll get those when she gets back. as Debbie said about the silence notifications, that's key. So I have Slack on my desktop. I also have Slack on my phone. And I like this because, you know, I can get messages after hours. I can get messages like if I am on lunch and I want to make sure that I'm still like responsive to something that needs to be responded to. But sometimes that becomes a lot. At one point, I even had Slack on my watch, and I was in a program one time, and like our channels were like blowing up with messages, and it was just constantly like binging on my watch because I didn't set it to silent. So like the entire like time that I was presenting, it was just like vibrating on my wrist, which was really, really obnoxious. So Debbie asked, can I show how to pause notification? I don't know that I know how to pause notifications, to be perfectly honest. Like I said, oh, there you go. So you can just pause your notifications. This is really good too. So Debbie has actually done this too. So she's really good at saying, you know what? And I know that she does that because if I pause notifications, I'm not actually sharing my screen. I apologize.
Yeah, you're not sharing your screen right now.
Sorry. So if I go up to my name up here, the Ohio State University LOD unit, my workspace, I can do pause notifications, and I could do 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. This is really nice because if I know like I am head down working in a project, I don't want to like be getting all of these notifications on Slack. Usually I just shut Slack off. I just close completely out of it. You could also just shut your notifications off. So you're pausing them for a temporary period of time. And then down under here, Debbie, can you pause your notifications for me? And I'll show what that looks like from my end. So now a little Z appeared next to Debbie's name. So I know that she's not receiving notifications. So I know if I
That doesn't mean I'm asleep.
Right. Exactly. It doesn't mean she's asleep. It just means that her notifications are off. And that's why she's not responding. So that's a nice feature too. We actually all go to pause notifications between, I can't remember what hours it is, but like I know automatically all of our notifications pause. So I can still get messages, but it'll show that like we're all away. And that's usually between like what, 9 p.m. and like 9 a.m. maybe.
And you can also set that up in your profile, Danae, too,
yeah.
Of when your do not disturb time is.
So yeah, that's Slack in a nutshell. We also wanted to share a little bit about Zoom chat because a lot of the functionality that we've been showing you here today, you have some of this functionality within the Zoom interface. And where did my Zoom thing go? So are you all seeing the Zoom desktop app? So the Zoom chat feature, you cannot access through a web browser. So I know some people have grown accustomed to just accessing their Zoom account through a web browser. You really need to have the desktop application installed, the desktop client installed to access the chat within Zoom. So you have, like, you're pretty much stripped of all capability that like Slack and Teams offers, but if you just need like an instant messaging platform, then chat can become a really viable option here. So if I go into Zoom chat over here, I click the chat tab on the upper part of my screen, or upper part of that application. You'll notice how Jared and I have a direct message chat here happening. I asked him a question, he responded. Notice how we don't use this very much. This was sent in March. This is my only conversation. I don't use Zoom chat very much, but it is kind of nice. So let's say I want to start a new chat. I will go over here where it says recent, and I could do start a new chat or a new channel. If you start a new chat, I could type, let's say I type ShaLise's name, and there she pops up. So now, it didn't actually, it's not actually allowing me to send her a message. Let's try, well, I already have one to Jared. Let's try Debbie Lewis. So Debbie's worked. So now I can type Debbie a direct message. You have some of the functionality where I can add a reaction here. I can share, copy, I can unfollow this, I could star it. I could write a reply and you'll see Debbie's typing and now she sent me a response back. You can also create a channel. So similar to like Slack channels and team channels, I could create a whole channel here. I could name it. So you can actually create like a whole channel or a whole like thread of information, but the capability is just a lot less than what you have in Slack. The thing about Zoom chat that I've had a hard time with, especially prior to COVID, is pre-COVID, when we weren't on Zoom all day, every day, I didn't have Zoom open on my computer all the time. So there were times that like people across the org would send me a question. It happened several times. Like people sent me a question. I didn't use Zoom for several days. So it was closed on my computer, never got a notification until I opened Zoom 3 days later. And I realized somebody sent me an important question and I never responded to it because I didn't get the notification. There's probably ways that you can like change your notification settings so that maybe it sends you an email or maybe it pops open on your phone if you have the Zoom app installed on your phone, but I didn't really like that. The thing that's nice though here is you can, if I do a new chat, theoretically, like I could send my husband a message because he also works at the university. So anybody in the university, just like with Office 365 products like Microsoft Teams, anybody across the university is available in here that you can send messages to. With Slack, because Slack is not a university enterprise tool, you have to actually add people to your team in order for them to access it. And they have to go through the process of like creating a Slack account. And so it's not as intuitive, but the direct messaging here in Zoom is really nice too. This is a nice communication tool if you just have like a quick question for somebody and you know that they have Zoom open and they can respond to it. And it's all just integrated there. So any questions about Zoom chat? You have some other capabilities here like file sharing and stuff, but we won't get into all the specifics there. So what questions do you have? Or do you have questions?
Danae and ShaLise, I know the first one was how do we see Skype for Business playing in with all this?
I don't know.
I know that's a tough question to answer. So we do know that, I think, is it Microsoft purchased Skype for Business? So I don't know that there's been any official announcement, but there's speculation that it might just fold into Microsoft Teams, because why would Microsoft need to have two, communication apps that are fairly similar? So we're not sure. There's been nothing official, at least that I'm aware of, that's come out, but we're thinking that is a possibility. And since the university is a Microsoft licensed institution, Teams we don't think is going to go anywhere. It's probably a safe bet that it'll be around for a long time. So I think it is catching some popularity across the university. I don't know if anyone else has other points to add.
It's hard to say where we're going, but that made me remember this graphic that ShaLise made for us that kind of highlights the differences. And the thing I'll point out here is you'll notice the only thing that Teams doesn't allow is this video chat, which is interesting because if Microsoft bought Skype for Business, I wonder why that's not integrated. The only way to do a video call within Teams is to integrate WebEx, and we don't use WebEx. So there's no way to do a video chat within the Teams platform currently. That said, like Jared mentioned, things are constantly in flux. Things are changing all the time. So that might change with the Skype for Business integration. So again, you'll see here, we will add this chart when we update or when we upload this video recording and put it on our LOD website. We'll include this chart along with that. And ShaLise found another really great article that kind of highlights a lot of the major differences between Slack and Teams. We'll also include a link to that article because it goes a little bit more in depth on like what you can access on the free accounts and what you can access on the premium accounts. Of course, because we are Microsoft University, we do have the premium Teams account. So we have a lot more functionality there that we don't have to pay for because the university pays for it, basically.
And then there was one more thing I meant to show. I mentioned it earlier, but I never actually showed the actual way to do it. But to add box to Microsoft Teams. So you're able, I'm going to share my screen. I know we all love box, but you are able to add box directly into Microsoft Teams. And so to do that, you will go to your Files tab, and then at the bottom, it'll say Add Cloud Storage. And then from there, you'll be prompted to click Box. All you do is sign in to your username or OSU name.number and password, and then it'll then prompt you again to say Grant Access to Box. You'll just click that button, and then you'll be in your own Box account. So
Actually,
there
really
are
nice.
documents in here that I need to share. Oh, there's no files in there. Jared, is this your file? No, I'm joking. So if there's folders in here with documents that you want to share, you have the opportunity to do so as well. So
That's actually really nice. So, so end of story. Microsoft Teams does it all. If you don't, well, other than video conferencing, but we have Zoom for that. Slack, if you don't need it all, then you can use a platform like Slack, which in my opinion has a better user interface, but again, less functionality. The biggest, I think, takeaway message here is talk with the teams, like talk with your counties, talk with the like statewide teams that you work on, and just have that conversation. What functionality do we need? Can we pilot test a platform? These are no strings attached, right? Slack is free to use. We have Microsoft Teams for free. Zoom chat is integrated with Zoom. So just start to test something out and see how you like it. With LOD, I don't know that LOD could be half as effective as we are if we didn't use a platform like Slack or like Teams. We use it, I don't want this to scare you, but we use it pretty much all day, every day, that it doesn't become cumbersome. Like to me, it doesn't seem cumbersome, but it keeps us all, like we are closer now than we have ever been before. And that's saying something because we're all working from home. We haven't seen each other face to face for 4 months. And yet we are more effective now, I think, than we've ever been able to be because we've adopted a strategy. We've adopted a tool that allows us to be effective. So yeah, talk with your teams. If you have questions about any of these, don't hesitate to reach out and we will, we're not like super experts in any of these tools. Some of us are more familiar with, like ShaLise is like so great with Teams. I get into Teams, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now, but it's a learning process. And once you start using it and becoming more comfortable with it, it'll be great.
Danae, I think those are some really good points. The only thing I will add is, because I have worked with several people on this, is yes, like you said, do some thinking about what features you need. And then unless you're like a really techie type person, really put some thought into it, because some people do get some fatigue over like, oh, now I have Teams and Slack and Zoom and X and Y and Z. So try not to overload people or overwhelm them. So if you can pick whoever your most like techie type person is, maybe to test them out and say, here's my suggestion, and then try to stick with one for at least a little bit of time, because it does take some time to get used to for people. So, but
Sure.
I will agree with Danae that I think communication is as good, if not better, than it ever has been since we've started using these tools.
I think especially for, and I don't want to speak for Amy, and even Brian, because the three of us as members of the LOD unit, you know, our primary office is not in ag admin. So when we are in a physical space, like Amy and Brian, who works out of, I think, Campbell Hall, I work out of Worcester, Amy's out of Nebraska. It feels like we're all working in the same space because we have a tool like Slack to help us be there. So it's been hugely beneficial for myself personally, working as a telecommuter anyway, to just feel way more connected to my team. So with that is what we have for you today. We expected this to be a lot shorter, but I think that I think we gave you a lot of really good information. And yeah, like I said, just don't hesitate to reach out with questions you might have. And thank you for being here. Next week, next Friday, we are talking about the care aspect of our team engagement. How do you make sure that your team members feel cared for and recognized for the work that they're doing? So 11 a.m. next Friday morning. We'll see you then.
Thanks, Danae. Thanks, ShaLise.